Hello and welcome, everyone. We're live at KubeCon with Basil, and I'm so happy to be meeting him for the first time. The
Yes,
very
face to
first
face.
place.
Yes.
Yes, I've heard a lot of good things
We
about
we
you.
both have done quite a few videos and things, but
Never in person,
never in
never
person.
together.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah,
It's very good to meet you, actually.
very good to meet you too. And I think we're here for a very, very special purpose, aren't we? Edge 3.0 launch.
3.0 launch. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So,
Yeah. So first, before we go into that detail, I just want to say thank you to our team that has been doing yeoman's work behind the scenes to really bring this launch to fruition. We've got strong leadership in engineering with Steven and Jay and the teams that they lead, and Reese running Field PM, and Larry Morris and team for the PMs. It's really, what's the right word? Encouraging to see teams click very well and come together and do really good work. And I'm humbled to be part of that group, and I'm beside myself with joy in terms of what we do together and how we're making changes in the world. So I wanted to say that first.
yeah, but I also heard from a little bird that flew by my hotel last night that you
Okay.
gave a very, very awesome keynote at Kubernetes on Edge Day too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. It was short, and I had a little fun with it. It was about the industrial IoT space and how we can collectively bring that to a cloud native ecosystem. So I used an analogy about the infinite turtles going down. So I guess I don't want to repeat that here, but we can probably link to that keynote and people can view it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it'll already be out by the end of this week,
Okay.
or if not this week, by the end of next week for sure, given the pace at which CNCF uploads stuff. And this is not like a new thing. It's
Sure.
been there since it was quite some time. But switching gears, we're here to talk about 3.0.
We
So
are.
let's get right into it.
Sure. SUSE Edge 3.0 is a maturation release for us. We've been in the Edge business for quite a while. Last year was a 2.0 release. And with our new engineering capabilities, we have really gone deep into making sure we have complete coverage for the deployment complexity that we see at the edge. And so what 3.0 is a release that addresses all of those things. And so there's a lot of things to talk about, but I think talking about 3.0 in terms of use cases is probably the best way to explore it. So we've matured the core components. SLE Micro versions have been upgraded. Kubernetes versions in the form of K3S and RKE2 have been upgraded. And there's a lot of adjacent capabilities that we've baked into it. Namely, the one that we're most excited about is a tool called the Edge Image Builder.
Right.
And what that does, it allows you to declare like the state of the image that you want to use as a onboarding image or a deployment image at the edge location. And it gives you flexibility in terms of how you want to bootstrap a particular Kubernetes cluster at the edge. And so that's a very capable tool. And one of the things in that tool is our ability to address disconnected edge environments, right? And so a lot of those requirements come out of what we've seen in Rancher Government Solutions for the DoD, the Department of Defense, and intelligence community use cases. But we also have some commercial customers who have pretty much the exact same requirements, right, in terms of disconnected clusters. And so the image builder allows us to basically stand up in a complete cloud native environment behind a closed network, for example. So that's a really powerful tool. The 3.0 suite, if you will, also has capabilities for deeper bare metal management. And those requirements came out of the telco space. And so, and I'll talk about the relationship between 3.0 and ATIP after this, but in that bare metal management capability, we can take a machine if it has a BMC interface. A BMC interface is the baseboard management controller, like IPMI, DRAC, or ILO, things like that, where you can do lights out management of hardware. So we have embraced Metal Cubed to give us the capability to control those machines using the BMC interface. So we can take a machine from an off state, turn it on, load an image, build a cluster, link that cluster to a GitOps flow, and then have your applications just automatically start running. And that requirement came from the telco use case because they do a lot of lights out management for the telco deployments. But other commercial customers can take advantage of that as well.
Yeah. And speaking of customers, I know that there's been a lot of interest around SUSE Edge specifically. So I also want to touch base on the kind of use cases you've seen so far. Like, I know telco is one major use case that we've sort of seen. I know that we've also expanded into retail and stuff like that. Can you shed some light on that?
That could be an hour-long conversation. But
We have time.
let me summarize by saying that this is the one thing that I absolutely love about the edge business. If an opportunity presents itself, it's almost guaranteed to be an opportunity that we've never seen before, right? So the diversity makes it exciting. The use case complexity makes it exciting, and it's the one thing that drives us to do things like Edge 3.0 with the tools that I just mentioned. But we've seen cruise lines adopt our stack. Obviously, we've seen restaurants do that. Last year at KubeCon, we talked about Kratos, a satellite company. So we're running not only just in the satellites, but in the ground stations that terminate the signal. So what's happening in that space is really interesting, where basically satellite communications has become software defined.
Yep.
Right? And literally, you could take generic hardware, change the frequency that the radio is listening to, and have a whole new application, for example. So very powerful use cases in that regard. There's a lot of DoD opportunities, but we can't talk about those. But I will say that looking at some of those use cases, it's like we're in an episode of Iron Man and Tony Stark is at the helm and we're doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
That's super exciting. And I just like, you can see I'm lighting up talking about it. But they're very cool use cases. And as an American, I will say that I'm very proud of the fact that we can support some of our mission critical and tactical use cases that we see in that space.
Yeah. And you did say that we were going to speak about ATIP and SUSE Edge.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I have to take it back.
So let's talk about ATIP. So ATIP is an acronym for the Adaptive Telco Infrastructure Platform. And so the way it builds is the following. So we have SUSE Edge 3.0, which is a generic platform that is meant to serve multiple industries. It's the infrastructure layer that you push to the edge so that you can put your cloud native application where it does the best good, right?
Yeah.
And so that serves a lot of industries for us. So that's table stakes. What the telco industry requires is more specificity around their requirements, because in that world, it's all about, as I say, passing packets as fast as possible from the radio tower to the core to, some application or to the network.
Sure.
And so what ATIP is, it's an optimized version of the core stack where all we do is focus on the telco requirements in terms of high performance. So within that stack, you'll see not just Sleep Micro, but a real-time version of Sleep Micro available. Not just K3S, but RK2 or K3S with optimizations for DPDK, SRILV, and the implementation at the Linux layer to implement precision time protocol. Because it's all about precision, it's all about the network, it's all about moving packets from the network interface all the way up to the container for processing. So ATIP checks the box across the board and up and down the stack. And the other thing that's critically important to understand about ATIP from a telco perspective is that we are active participants in an upstream community called Sylva, SYLVA.
Yeah.
And Sylva was started by a 5 or 6 of the large European telcos. They wanted to come together under the Linux Foundation umbrella to create a telco solution that they all could use and embrace because they wanted choice.
Yep.
And so SUSE has been a part of that vision even before it was called Sylva. I think it was called eGate back in the day.
Yeah.
And we've been there since the eGate days. And so we, our product manager who leads our telco division is Tim Ernick, and he is an active member on the board for Sylva. And so Sylva, as an open source community, specifies a specification for the telco stack. And what ATIP is, in essence, is a downstream implementation of the Sylva 1.0 specification. So it's something that you can buy and get commercial support for if you intend to deploy 5G.
Yeah, and to say that we have Project Silver also coming up for, a stream
Yeah. Oh,
is,
excellent.
yeah,
So it's a good segue.
yeah, it's a very good segue. And I'm excited about that as well. I think we have that the next couple of days
Okay,
though.
sure.
But I'm curious to hear what's next though. Like
Yeah.
after this, what's next?
So in the keynote that you mentioned yesterday that I did about the industrial IoT space, I think that's the next frontier for us. I can't go into too much detail because it's still, moving very fast. But what we're seeing is that, so let me back up a bit. From day one, I saw, in talking to customers, I saw how the edge was shaping up. And based on the feedback and the conversations we had with customers and partners, we understood there were largely three segments of edge. And visually, if people can follow me here, if you go from left to right, the left-hand side being the centralized services, the cloud services, the further right you go, the further away from the central services you get, and you run into three separate and distinct segments of edge, as we call it. The first one is the telco space. We call that the near edge because it's nearest to the left, right? It's nearest to the cloud. And ATIP is a product that we have that solves for the use cases for telcos and communication service providers. The next segment, once you hop over the demarcation device, the router or what have you, you run into what we find mostly in terms of diversity.
Okay.
So retail, ships, satellites, it's all the far edge. And there's a Kubernetes cluster running at that location. Many times it's single node, but it could be multiple nodes. And then, so we call that the far edge. And then within that environment, there are industrial IoT devices, sensors, actuators, cameras, plasma cutters, right? For example, right? Pressure sensors. There's a lot of things there. And so those devices are traditionally too small to run Kubernetes, too small to run Linux, but they do have software. And so that is what we call the tiny edge because it's the tiniest set of components that we see at the farthest end of the edge. And so the next way for us is to address the tiny edge. And the talk that I gave a few days, it was yesterday, it feels like forever.
It's yesterday. KubeCon, at KubeCon, I can tell you one thing, time is a very abstract concept.
And accelerated.
Yes.
Yes. Excuse me one second. So in the keynote, I used an analogy about finding the final turtle.
Yep.
So the analogy is that, Eastern Guru was talking about the formation of the universe and where's the earth, right? So the earth is there. And a student asks, what is the earth standing on? And the guru says it's standing on the back of a tiger. And the student goes, okay, so what is the tiger standing on? And it's standing on the back of an elephant. Okay, fair enough. Okay, what is the elephant standing on? Well, the elephant is standing on the back of a giant turtle. And the student goes, well, what's the turtle standing on? And then the guru goes, after a while, he says, it's turtles all the way down. Okay. So that analogy was used to kind of highlight the complexity because the edge is still very new for cloud native folks in particular. And so the complexity there, you didn't know where it ended, right? For the most part. And so the point I was trying to make yesterday was that we have found the final turtle. And it is the landscape of the industrial IoT space because the point I'm trying to make here is that if we can get connectivity and put our arms around those industrial devices, we can then extract value from the metrics and the data and make a U-turn and come back up the stack.
Yes.
And feed that data to the applications that we have running at that location or in the cloud or wherever it is to get that business value that we need. And then that's the final frontier for us. And so we think that industrial IoT boundary is where the edge ends for us in terms of the universe, stacking on itself, right? And so that's our mission is to make sure that we can standardize the interface to the complexity that we see in the industrial IoT space.
Yeah, and that sounds like a very ambitious goal,
yes,
according to me. Because, like you said, it's moving at a fast pace, but everything in technology anyway does move at a fast pace.
It's very fast, it's very complex, and it's very siloed. It's the perfect challenge that I would love to take on.
Yeah. With that, I think we are absolutely, thrilled to have you here.
Sure, absolutely. Happy to be here.
And thank you so much for taking our time today
Okay.
and stopping by the booth.
And listen, it was very good to meet you in person and have
Yes.
this session with you. And no longer virtual.
No longer virtual and no longer in silos.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Glad to be here. Thank you.